Thank you for joining us. So sorry for the late start. We had some technical difficulties, but we're all set to go. My name is Adola Yinka Oshunleye. I'm the Africa Forward Program Manager. Just some quick housekeeping rules. To prevent Zoom bombing, we are unfortunately unable to allow you to unmute yourselves. So if you do have any questions or have any comments or contributions, please put them in the chat, or you can raise your hands during the Q&A portion and then we'll call on you. Alternatively, there's also the Q&A function that you can just put your questions into, and we'll make notes of them, and during Q&A, you'll be able to have your questions answered. Secondly, you will not be able to start your video. Also because of Zoom bombing, we've had some poor experiences in the past, and we're trying to prevent any of that from happening again. Please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, your name, your organization, the country you're from or you're representing, and the SDGs that you support. I'll hand over to my colleague Pearl, who's the Africa Forward Program Director, to introduce herself and just talk about Africa Forward quickly, and then head back to me, and then I'll introduce our moderator for today. All right, over to you, Pearl.
Thank you so much, Adola, and good afternoon, bonjour. That is the extent of my language capabilities, but honestly, today's an exciting one for us. We're really pleased to have you all here. Thank you for the patience. We know that this is a topic that is dear to several people's hearts, and we're just looking forward to having a lively conversation. The truth is, you can definitely, I know that a lot of you are already here because you know about what Africa Forward is doing. We have as one of our 3 blueprint action areas, just promoting sustainable financing on the continent. We absolutely want to build out an ecosystem of social innovators and entrepreneurs that can stand firmly on their ground and can basically essentially raise financing both on the continent and essentially stand shoulder to shoulder with their counterparts anywhere else in the world. So this is a conversation that was really relevant and exciting for us. I really won't take up much more time because I know that you all are pretty familiar with Africa Forward. We are building out and supporting this ecosystem, and conversations like this, which we have certainly intentionally curated by bringing you organizations working from the continent, organizations raising the kind of financing and bringing together the kind of stakeholders that you all as well are interested in, we know is timely and relevant for your purposes. So I will not take up much time. I'm going to hand over to Odola to basically kick off today's conversation. Please feel free to put in your comments, as she's mentioned, your questions, and yes, we look forward to further conversations.
Always speaking when I'm muted, but thank you very much, Pearl. And to get us started very quickly, I'm going to hand over to our moderator, Penelope. Just a quick note that this conversation was put together in collaboration with the Global Shapers Africa Hub, and Penelope is from the South Africa Hub of Global Shapers. So over to you, Penelope.
Thank you so much, Odola. It's a pleasure to be here and to be working with Catalyst 2030 on a very pertinent conversation, which is how do we learn from successful social innovators on how to secure funding for some of the continent's biggest problems and social issues. It's a pleasure to be here with Dr. Abiodun from Help Mom, who is a dynamic social entrepreneur who is dedicated to improving maternal and infant health across Nigeria. As the founder and CEO of Help Mom, a social enterprise that leverages mobile technology and low-cost innovations, Dr. Adereni has developed a holistic approach to addressing the challenges faced by pregnant women and their infants in rural, remote, and semi-urban areas. Since its inception, Help Mom has secured close to $3 million in grant funding from renowned organizations such as Google, Merck, Meta, the Vaccine Alliance, Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, World Connect USA, and Global Citizen, amongst others. And this is the root of why we're here today. And I think just to kickstart Dr. Abiodun, to kickstart what we want to speak about, it would be great to hear about what social challenge did you identify in Nigeria that started the inception of Help Mom on your journey to beginning it?
Yeah, so thank you very much, and thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure. So, basically, we know, I mean, it's a common knowledge that Nigeria is one of the largest contributors to maternal and infant mortality in the world. It's like, this is not me trying to downgrade this country, it's just the reality. We have a lot of broken healthcare infrastructure in terms of how people have delivery, and also I saw the opportunity of how we can use technology to solve some of these problems and make life better for mothers, right? I was in university when we're doing something around toxoplasmosis. So toxoplasmosis is when mothers keep animals around them when they are pregnant. And when you keep animals around you when they are pregnant, if like maybe a dog or a cat, if they have something called toxoplasmosis, it can affect the baby, and it can cause congenital infection in the baby. So one thing I did then was I went with my friends, we went to some communities to do sensitization to mothers, because we noticed that in rural communities, a lot of mothers keep a lot of all these animals around there. Then one mother was showing me that, see, that you look at that community, like look at that area, the primary healthcare center there has not been functional for the last 5 years. So they use the services of community health workers to have delivery, right? And from there, I was able to have conversation with community health workers, and I saw that number one, a lot of them are not trained. Number two, a lot of them are not certified. Number three, a lot of them just use the knowledge they get from their grandmothers to do some of the work they do. And I noticed also that most of the complicated cases we have in major hospitals are always coming from these areas, because these people will have done something unethical on the mother, then transfer them at when things have already really gone so bad. So I said, see, there's a lot of things we can use in which there's a lot of way technology can come in to solve this problem. And the first thing we did then was to be providing kits. Like, so there's this kit, it contains like all the essential items a mother needs to have delivery. So if you don't have a primary healthcare center in your community, if you don't have an hospital, you have that kit with you. You can use the service of a community health worker, and you still have the same kind of experience a mother that is in an urban area will have. So that was the first thing we started with. Then we noticed that even if these mothers are successful in giving birth with the kit, there's still a likelihood that they will lose their children to vaccine-related preventable disease, because we notice a lot of these children come down with measles, polio, things that literally can be prevented with vaccine. First of all, one challenge I noticed from that is that people don't know about this vaccine. Let me say another good side about Nigeria. Nigeria gives vaccines for free, right? You don't have to pay anything to get this vaccine, but people don't know that it's for free. People don't go there to take it. So that was when we developed something we call a tracking system. So it's the linkage between you having access to this vaccine and taking your child for vaccine. So what we do is to encourage you to take your child for vaccine, is for you to see the usefulness of this vaccine, and it's for us to bring these vaccines to your homes so that you can also have this vaccine taken. And that also led us to a lot of things that we do. So from that time we started, and now we've evolved now more into a research maternal and infant health care organization. So what we do essentially now is we develop new innovations in AI, frontier technology. We partner with governments, we partner with big tech companies to now not only develop products and innovation that can be used in Nigeria, but that can scale, that can be used across the world. And I will mention some of them during the course of this conversation. So that's how, like, an overview of how we started.
That is incredible. I think it's when you look at the scale of the problem, it's very easy to see what challenges need to be made, especially in the face of the cultural and social and economic context of the area, and seeing how you've grown and how you started to where you are now. What would you say was the funding wise? What was the biggest break that you got, and at what stage were you able to secure funding, and what was the catalyst of you getting your first funding deal?
So when we started, I knew we needed so much money to do this, right? But I didn't understand how. But for me then, and still now, I'm not, so I'm more particular about how the life that what we are trying to do, how it's really impacting people's life rather than the funding itself. So I wasn't really, so I knew we needed a lot of money, but in my head, I was like, okay, we're gonna figure this out later or sooner, right? So the first funding we got was from Penelope Foundation. That was a long time ago, actually. And so that funding, and I made a very big mistake, and I think it's for everybody to learn from, actually. So when we got that funding, immediately we got that funding, we got another opportunity. I got an opportunity to get into an accelerator in Nairobi. And they promised they were going to give 50,000 USD, good money. But they said, oh, you need to come to Kenya for this accelerator program. You stay for 3 months. Then after the last month, you do a demo day. Then after the demo day, we'll give you the money, right? But you need to take care of all your expenses and we'll refund it afterwards. So I was excited, right? Like I was just like, oh, 50K, that's a lot of money. At that time, dollar was still like, I think, three something. It was like 50. I said, oh, we can do a lot with this. So I took my bag. I went to Nairobi. I was staying in Kwetu. I don't know people that have been to. I was like, I like this place. Thank God, at least after 3 months, I'll come back to Nigeria and we'll be able to do more. So I started noticing that these guys, they started changing mouth a bit during the conversation. So they started saying things like, oh, we think this is a good idea. We think this is what will happen. But we don't think we 10% can do it. We want 25%. So I started getting some of those like side comments from the organizers, but I didn't pay attention. Like that's my first time of coming to Accelerator now, JJC. But there was something I noticed. People that were selected that had been in this thing, a lot of them were dropping out. So I was asking questions that I would call some. I said, I didn't see you because we're doing the accelerator at Strandmont University. I will ask them, I didn't see you at the accelerator today. What happened? Oh, oh, I don't think I need it. I don't think those guys are serious. I said, how are they not serious now? We are having classes. And they said, don't worry, I'll understand later. Right? So I was sure dragged along. So when they selected us, we were 50. From 50, they cut us down to 30. I was part of the 30. They cut us down to 15. I was part of the 15. And I was excited. I think I'm doing the right thing. Part of that 15, 5 people just dropped out a day. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? But I'm here. I mean, I came from Nigeria. There's no way I can leave this thing. Then at the end of the accelerator on the demo day, see, this is how now God works, which I think is very important. We have to understand if your intentions are right. On the last day of the demo day, in the morning, so the Google CEO came to Nigeria a year before to make an announcement that Google was going to invest $6 million, no, $12 million in Africa. He came a year before. That morning, there was an announcement I saw online that Google has launched something called the Google Impact Challenge. That morning, that the day I was going to have the accelerator, and they were going to give $250,000 to good organizations, 3 organizations, and the like. So when I saw it, I was like, oh, I'm still fighting for 50K. There's nothing I should forget about this thing. Let me go and do this accelerator thing. So when I got to the accelerator, the guy just showed me their contract. It was like, I have to sign that if they're going to if they're going to invest 50K, they have to take 25K out of it. And also, if I don't take that agreement, I will not get my money that I used to come. So I was like, okay. So in my mind, I thought about it for a while. I spent so much money. But I said, no, I'm not going to take this agreement. Like, no problem now. I did the accelerator. A lot of people came, because there are some investors there. They all came. They were like, oh, we think this will work. We think it might not work. But I wasn't really concerned. So I went back to the Google Impact Challenge I saw. So I looked at it. Everything Google wanted at that point in time, we didn't have it. They wanted it to have like be in existence for some certain number of years. We didn't have it. They wanted us to do this. We didn't have it. So I told myself, there's no harm in applying. I will tell them the truth. Like, we did not have any of these things. We don't have any of these things. Let me just, right. So I came back to Nigeria. In fact, that day when I was coming, I remember when we were from Kenya to Ethiopia, that plane was shaking. I was thinking that we should just like see, because I was so angry. At that point in time, there were a lot of things I left on the table, right? At that point, my brother was leaving the country. My dad wanted me to leave immediately also with him. So there were a lot of things I left to take this. So I was really angry. So when I got back to Nigeria, the little money that was left from Tony Elumelu, I continued. I got a sharing space. We started giving out the cake, started doing the program, started thinking about ways to innovate. So I applied for the Google Impact Challenge. I remember in August that same year, Google got back, oh, you got to the second round. Now you need to provide this document. So and that's one of the reasons why I'm saying this story is you have to be honest in this work also, because people can sense it. And if you are not, you can get into trouble on the long term. So when Google said, submit this document, I said, I don't have it. I don't have any document. These are the things I have and everything. So they said, okay, we'll come for a site visit. When they came for a site visit, he said, he said, where are you? When I even got downstairs, the guy said, where's your boss? I said, no, this is me. Let's go upstairs. Let's go and stay. And we spoke, and the guy was just shaking his head. He was writing. He kept writing on his laptop. He was shaking his head and everything. So I now told the guy something. I said, listen, I said, if Google can make this bet on us, that day I wasn't required. I said, if Google can make this bet on us, I said, I think there's a lot of opportunities we can also explore with Google together aside this that can be beneficial for mothers across the world. The guy was just shaking his head. He laughed. He said, okay. And he said, no problem. So he left because he was going to other organizations. So in between, I got an hint that budget got to the semi-final stage also. I said, no, this is done. No, forget about this thing. Like budget got to the semi-final. Oh, I don't think I can get it. In fact, Jan also got to the semi-final. So I was like, all these organizations that got to the semi-final, nah, just let me just forget. But in October, I got the email, you're selected, come and pitch. But at that point in time, we're all semi-finalists. We're all finalists, and all of us were going to get 125K. Then for the pitch, when you pitch, 3 of us were going to get additional 125K. I pitched and I got the money. So at that point in time, looking at where I was coming from of 50K for 25K, then getting $250,000. It was at that time I now sat that now everything I need is within my disposal to do a lot of things I wanted to do. And also, to be honest, I have to be very honest also. I think the affiliation we had with Google early opened a lot of doors, because people would say that if Google could bet on you, a lot of organization, that means you're credible, like you could do the work. So we started doing, first of all, I was able to now establish a team to now do the work. I was able to establish the tech team. We started innovating, we started providing the solution, we started scaling up, right? At that point in time, I remember we got a partnership with Oyo State government to install our tracker in all their primary healthcare centers. From there, we started scaling up and we started getting more partners to come on board. There's still a lot of stories to share because we still continuous, but we started getting more partners on board, and that helped us to start growing. I don't want to take more time on that question. Maybe it's an answer more if it comes up.
Yeah, no, that was incredible. And I think the one thing that I would take from it is you said something that you thought, let me just forget. But I think just a message to everyone here is do not forget and just go for it. Because you never know what the positive outcome might be. So you said quite a lot, and you mentioned something that I think is important to keep top of mind is in as much as we want funding and because it'll accelerate what we're trying to do, it's important to understand that there are terms and conditions that come with the funding, and there's certain stipulations that funders might need from social enterprises and their founders, which you addressed and that you handled. What terms and conditions do you think people should be mindful of when they're looking for funding, so that they know how to manage those as they do their social work?
So, that is a very, very. So let me also go back to the Google. I'll share two stories to talk about this broadly. So when the Google stuff came, Google now said that we like the kits you are doing, take to 50K and go and give people kits for free. And I said no. And I gave them two reasons why. I said, one, if I do this, people will not value it. Like when you give people things for free, they don't tend to value it. People will just take the kit. Some of them can even go and resell, right? Why don't we do this? We subsidize it heavily. That means we take off 50% of it. Then we also use community health workers who are doing the work to sell them, make commission on them, and we can have some of those money back to do a lot of things. I was scared when I said that, but they said, okay, we'll go and talk to our legal team because this is for charity. And they came back and they said, okay, we'll agree to this. Then you have to keep reporting back to us in the next, like, for 3 years. So when we got that funding, instead of reporting back to Google for 1.5 years, we reported to them for 3 years so that they could understand what we were using all those money to do. And they saw it. In between that 3 years, we now did a work together. When they saw that the vaccination tracker we had was gaining more momentum, they decided to come on board that there's a role AI can play in this. And I'm very, very happy we had that conversation then. In fact, when we started talking about AI, there was no ChatGPT. Like AI was not as mainstream as it was then, right? There was no ChatGPT. So we decided to work and we saw that there's an opportunity of using AI to ensure people get vaccinated. Mothers take their children for vaccination. And when that happened, we were now able to come together, write a research paper that won a very big award at an AI conference, even before ChatGPT came out. We were now able to also deploy that solution, right? It is because I could understand where we were going as an organization. And that's why, even though I got the money, I was able to negotiate and say, I don't think this is right because this is what I think. There's another organization, I will mention their name, Brasset. They're in the US. The reason I got into their program last year, and they told me I should come to the US 3 times. I said I cannot come to the US 3 times. Number one thing I tend not to do at this point in time is that I try to be around in the office because we are doing a lot of work. And also, I want to expose the people that are working with me to all these opportunities. So when opportunities come to travel, maybe the US, the UK, I try to give it to them to go because I've done these things earlier. I really think they should be the one to be at the forefront now. They said I should come. I said I will send my head of operation. They said no, it's my face they want to see. Okay, I said I will come once. They said I should come 3 times. And with my experience with these guys first, when you tell me, come, I will do it, I don't listen because I've had a bad experience before. It's like a girl now, a man promised to marry you and he does not marry you, after giving you a ring. If anybody gives you a ring again, will you believe? You will not believe. So I said, no, I will not come. They said, we will not give you the money until you come. I said, I will not come. Then they said, we will remove this thing from you. I said, remove it now, 50K, okay, go. Because I don't know, maybe the devil is trying to play the same thing he did then last year on me. Because at that point in time, we already had so much was in it. And they didn't give me the accelerator program because I was told to come to the US 3 times and I didn't go. And I also think, I was talking to a friend told me that a lot of people would take this. A lot of people take because Is it not to go to US and go and enjoy and be posting on Instagram? I said, no, for me, I don't think, I think I've gone beyond that stage in my life, going, traveling when I feel is not important. Every single thing they wanted me to do, I can do it from Nigeria, right? I can pitch, I can do all those things. And I said, okay, let me send my staff. I'm okay with my staff. They said no. And because of that, I left it. A lot of people, I'm very sure 90% of people in Nigeria won't leave that. And the reason why I mentioned their name is people to go verify, right? This is their application process is online and everything. 90% of people won't do that. But I understand that for the organization we are building now, for the kind of skill that we have now, I really don't think traveling a lot is something I find pleasure in anymore. I think staying back in the country and doing the work is something I find pleasure in. One, two, I feel a lot of people working here need that exposure, right? They need that experience more than I do. I've traveled really vast across the world, and I don't think I really need to, keep doing that. So to your question, know what you can reject and be firm. If people are going to take it, they will take it. If people are not going to take it, they will leave it. It's not, this whole thing is not by force. If they are the owner of the money, if they say, come and do this, I'm not doing. Okay, I'm not doing, we'll give it to somebody else, right? So I think you just have to be firm on what you really want and how you really want things to happen for your organization. Yeah.
Thank you. I think using the reference of seeing the relationship between the social enterprise and the funder and seeing it as a relationship and seeing that there's compromises that might need to be made, but also knowing when to stay true to you and being able to see how if they veer off from your own purpose, then you still stand your ground because you know that there'll be more opportunity elsewhere and that you don't have to do what they want you to if it doesn't feel right for you. I think because there might be this perception that social entrepreneurs are desperate and there might be this notion of telling them that they must do X, Y, Z, and that they'll do it. But it's great to see an example of someone saying, no, this is not what I want to do, and it's not what I believe in, and this steers from my goals, which I think during this journey will be key to maintain. And just on that, and speaking about opportunities, how would one, if I'm a social entrepreneur and I'm looking for that big break and I'm looking for how I can take my enterprise from one step to the next, where would I start to look? And it might seem like it's an obvious question, but I do think that in the face of a lot of information, a lot of grants, a lot of donations, it does seem that the answer might be very clear, but it would be great to hear from you on what you looked for, who you went to, that accelerated things for you.
So I will take that question a bit like backward, then answer forward. What I think is very important for a social entrepreneur, like I used to say, is that, so are you really passionate about this problem you're trying to solve, right? Or, and I will say it at a stage, or you are solving this problem for the benefit you stand to get. And I will explain the later, right? When you solve a problem for the benefit you have to get, that means you are solving the problem because you feel you can travel so much. One, two, you feel you can get so much opportunities. Two, three, you feel like you can use that to get scholarship. There's a way you look at it, right? There's a way you solve that problem, and there's a kind of vision you have. But when you are looking at solving a problem with an end game strategy, what is an end game strategy? Maybe you want to make it open source so it can benefit so many people. Maybe you want the government to adopt it so that it can be able to scale to people within the country they serve. Or maybe you want replication across the world. There's a way you look at it. First of all, the way I look at Help Mom is we use two strategy. I'm not scared to say it. The first strategy is open source, right? We really want all the technology we are building to be available for any organization, anybody that is interested in building anything within maternal and infant healthcare anywhere in the world to use it and benefit people in their communities. If you go to our website, you will see a lot of open source innovations that we've built. Second thing is the innovations that we are building, they are as a result of the gaps we saw within the government healthcare system in Nigeria. And then we are then building those innovations and partnering with the government so that it can scale down to a lot of people within their state. Currently now, Help Mom has partnership with 7 state governments: Kano, Katsina, Jigawa, Oyo, Osun, Akwa Ibom, Imo. Some of the technologies that we've built are being deployed across primary healthcare centers, and mothers are using it, and it's saving lives for them and also for their babies. So that is the way you look at innovation, and that is the way you look at scale. When you do that, the right funders will come on board and they will be ready to partner with you. I'll give you a story, another one I would like to share. Last year, Behavioral Insight team reached out to me. They're in London. They are one of the biggest evaluation partners across the world. They do a lot of things around evaluation. They reached out to me and they said they wanted us to work together so that they can help us evaluate some of the innovations that we have so that we can be able to have more use case of people using it because it has been verified, right? And we started that partnership, right? And that partnership, we were able to get like a funding from it, we were able to get a funding from that to do some work. And there's an opportunity that came directly to us then that we should apply. It was like a $2 million grant. I reached out to them because I could see the work that we've done before, and it was easy for both of us to partner together, right? And when we did that partnership together, we were able to get that funding. Why did I use this example? It is important to understand the place of strategic partnership. I think in Nigeria, people really think they can go alone to do it. And when you try to go alone to do it, it's like you trying to break a wall alone. You can't break it alone. You need like people, you need organizations, you need people to work together so that you can do a lot of things. A lot of all the innovations, the research papers that we have, that we've publicly made available, it is not only done by us. We have partners, we have people we work with to get this done. So partnership is very important. We look for people that align within the space that we have, and we tend to work together to achieve a common goal, right? I know people might say partnership can be difficult, right? People might not be truthful to their words. People might want to backslide. People might want to, a lot of all those things do happen. But I think it is important that you understand the kind of partners you work with, you understand the kind of people you work with, so that you can both achieve something great together. So I employ people like partner. You can decide that it's you can go alone to get something, but you will face roadblock because one thing I've noticed that people in the West do so well is partnership. Living Good, Living Good, Living Mind, all these big organizations across the world, even as big as they are, they partner with each other to get those big funding so that they can be able to do more. There's a difference between what a $2 million grant can do than $100,000 can do. A $2 million grant can help you reach so many people at once, create that massive impact that you want, rather than $100,000 that can help you with maybe thousands of people. So you must be ready to look at the big picture to help you line it well with what you want out of what your organization and the kind of funding you want to get to grow your organization.
Yes, that is very important, and it does speak to the adage of if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And that speaks to how partnerships and collabs make people get to where they want, and it actually makes the social enterprise a lot more sustainable into the future, so that it continues to serve people as it intends to. And just one quick point that I want to touch on there is when you do go for partnerships and when you work with people, what would be the things that you've seen and that you've learned? What do funders look for specifically in your experience? What do you find that they look for in social enterprises that makes the enterprise a lot more appealing for them to invest in?
So they look at how big the problem is. So they look at how big the problem is. This problem you're trying to solve, how big it is, right? Because look at it also, is like investment, right? Someone giving you 100,000 investment. So then look at it like you have been given 100,000 investment now. You are expected to make a return if you have a company, maybe in the next 4 or 5 years, right? When you do that, when you make that return in the next 4 or 5 years, that is the benefit of the investor. For donors, they expect that if they give you money, they want to see the ripple effect of the life that you change, and they want to see that happen like over the next 4 or 5 years, right? I think it's important people really define what their end game strategy is early enough for the organization, because that is what you communicate clearly to funders for them to fund what you're doing. End game strategy can be your own, might just be self-sustained. Self-sustained is you just have it there, a small program somewhere, and you want it to continue. Your own might be you want it to be across the country. You want it to scale across the country. And the best way to scale anything you're doing is through government adoption. Your own might be you want your technology to be replicable, people to use it. You want to contribute to knowledge. The best way to do that is to write a lot of research paper and make some of the things you do open source. So you must be kind of clear how you want this to be, because with funders, they are always looking for the big ideas, even though it's donation, even though they are giving you the money to do anything you like, they're always looking at the big idea. This thing we are giving you money for, what is the potential for the next 5 years? What is the potential of this idea for the next 3 years? I like using food for education as an example, right? Food for education, what they do is they give out food. They give out food. The normal thing a lot of people do in Nigeria, they give out food to pupils. That's what they do. But do you know that the story they sell is the technology behind the food they give? Just last month or 2 months ago, we got $63 million as grant or something. I mean, 2054 or something like that, right? Just by giving out food. But the story behind it is the technology, right? Because the technology they've developed that is underneath it can help them scale the work broadly to more people. So it is important to understand this problem I'm solving, how big it is, how can I use technology to solve it? How can I scale it? How can more people use it? How can more people benefit from it? And that's one of the things I said before. If the reason why you are doing what you are doing is just for your own personal gain, you might not think about these things deeply, because once you think about these things deeply and it's something you want to do for a long time, you will think about how you can sustain it and how you can scale it and how you can impact more lives with it. So it is important you have that. This is not even about fun, it's you having that conversation, that truthful conversation with yourself and telling yourself, okay, this thing I'm doing, what am I really doing? Is it just if it's a pet project, it's fine. You don't have any issue if it's a pet project. But if it's something you feel like you want to do for the next few years, you must have an end game strategy in place. An end game strategy makes your work easy. An end game strategy makes you scale your work easily. And an end game strategy also help you attract the right donors and the right funders that will help you scale the work that you do. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's key to remember, because we need to understand that partnerships do come with their own goals on both sides. So it's important to be mindful of both of those goals and to maintain that relationship is mutually beneficial. I'm sure that the audience has some questions for our speaker. So if you would like to drop some questions in the chat, please do so, and we will address them. And just to speak on that while people are asking questions, have you found that there are some nuances and differences from getting funding from funders that are in Africa as opposed to funders who are international from the West, as you have funding from both. You mentioned that Tony Melu was your first funder, and then you also had conversations with Google and funders from the UK too. So have you seen any differences and in the way that you've had to adapt to those different stakeholders?
For funders from the West, most of the time, so this is also relative, right? Like Tony and Mbelu, when they gave us the fund, they were not really, they were just doing it, right? It was part of the Tony and Mbelu entrepreneurship program they were doing. So there was not really, just write the proposal. If they like it, they select you. If they don't like you, they don't select you. It's just straightforward. There's no much, wasn't it? There's no much reporting and the likes that you have to do. But for funders from the West, it's so different because you have so many reporting to do. And it's because most of the time, these are reports in the West, most of them give this money from their own tax deduction, right? It's the money they are need to pay for tax, so they give it to you as grant. So you have to report to them how you use it, right? So some reporting might be involved. Also, funders from the West are more concerned about scale. Like they want to see what you're doing, how you can scale it, and how you can get more people to use your product or innovations. Because for them, what they think about is that most of them are always multi-year donors, multi-year partners. So they want to see that if they start with you, you are not someone they will drop in the next 1 or 2 years. So they are more concerned about scale. In Africa, most fund out might be wrong, but from what I've seen, most funders are not really concerned really about scale. They're just concerned about the impact of what you're trying to do, right? Does this make sense? Does this feel good? Are people being impacted, right? So that is okay for them, right? We've gotten funding from Act Foundation before, and what they were more concerned about is the impact on ground. They want to see the impact because that is their whole mandate, right? So it is very important for them, right? So for them, they're not really concerned about, okay, scale, right? Because for them, it's impact. How will this money impact people on ground? For funders from the West, they are more concerned about scale. They want to see this money we are giving you, how many people can you reach in the next 5 years? It's always even in their proposal, how many people can you impact in the next 5 years? And they want you to be able to explain that clearly to them, right? And when you explain that clearly, they will give you the funding. So giving an instance now, there was a funding we got from some organizations last year. And what they're more concerned is that, can you be a social unicorn? Right? We've been hearing about tech unicorn, that is business unicorn. They were asking, can you be a social unicorn? Right? So if we give you this funding, tell us, what is the timeline you have? What is the roadmap you have that can lead you to be a social unicorn? So it's some of them, they are more, because for them, sometimes there was the time I was in Harvard and I met somebody and the person told me that she was just telling me that, do I know that a lot of donors in America, like sometimes when they give out money, they want to just feel good about themselves. Like they want to go to a party and tell their friends that, oh, you see that organization in Africa reaching billions of people? I'm the one funding them. So sometimes they have their mandate of what they want to show, right? And sometimes it's about you helping them to achieve that mandate sometimes. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But also I say this, ensure that you are not doing things for their mandate also. You are doing things because you feel it is right. It is something you really want to do, right? There are some fundings that I remember, I won't say this, it's more very, but just ensure that you are doing things for people's mandate. If you are not doing things for people's money, you are doing it because you want to do it. And also things that you are not okay with, things that you don't feel good about your organization, walk away from it. What I believe is this: anything that will be, any funding that will come. It's not about whether it doesn't come now, it will come, right? I remember when we walked out of that we walked out of this stuff in that organization that wanted to in Kenya. They told me that we can get you $10 million if you take this. It's a win-win situation for them. They said we can get you $2 million. We don't think if you don't take this, you will never get $2 million at once. We've gotten $2 million at once, even though it took a while. So it doesn't matter, really. It doesn't matter. Just understand what you are trying to do, what you are trying to achieve, how do you want to go about it, and just stay on it. But don't try to compromise the value of what you want because you just want some funding that might be a problem for you in the long term. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think a key overarching theme that has been throughout this whole chat is that do not compromise and always stay true, because that'll allow you to be more sustainable, and that'll allow you to stay on your own path, and that you don't have to go on anyone else's because a funder wants to drive you there. And you spoke about how there are certain signals that funders look for when they do look to fund a social enterprise. What would the key signals be that a social enterprise would have? So what did Help Mine have? What did they show that signal to funders that this will be a successful enterprise to back and to invest in? And how can social innovators position themselves to be primed for funding when they do approach funders?
Yeah, so for me, first of all, I'm someone that is very curious about knowledge, right? I'm someone that I love learning a lot, right? I'm just curious, like I see a problem, I want to find a way. So that has led to what Upcom has been today. One thing that has attracted a lot of funders to us is the way we build, right? I told you about the kits, right? But when you see what we do now, it's so much. We've built so many things. And what makes me happy about that is that we've built innovations that even if I decide not to run Upcom today again, I just say I'm not doing it again, they are still there for people to use and replicate anywhere they are going to be. So what has attracted funders to us is the way we build, our methodology of using technology to scale what we are building, and our methodology of research also. So they see us as a learning organization that other organizations that is trying to do something can learn from, one. Two, they see us as a learning organization that other organizations can build from and become a social unicorn also. I'll give you an instance. We've built like 4 open source AI innovations. I can tell you something for a fact today. Some of those AI innovations that we've made open source, another organization can take it, use it, and monetize it, and they will become big. Because we did it because we are doing it for the society and for the community. So all those things we do, using technology to scale our work, using open source methodology, using government adoption to scale our work, has made a lot of funders interested in the work that we do. And that has also been able to help us to have this kind of long-term partnership with a lot of all these people, because they see us as a knowledge hub for the things that we do. They see us as a knowledge hub for other organizations to learn from. They see us as a knowledge hub for other organizations to build on and scale upon. And the best way we've been doing that is through open source innovation, building AI innovations, and also using government adoption to scale the work that we do. So I think it is important. I'm not saying that other organizations should do this. I'm just saying that you need to find that thing that aligns with your organization. Your own might not be open source. Your own might not be government adoption. Your own might be self-replication. Your own might be another form of methodology to scale. Your own might be developing something that might have commercial success on the long term. So you don't have to look at what I'm saying today and say, oh, Upcom is using open source methodology and government adoption to scale, and that's why they're getting funding. Let me start doing that. That might not be relevant for your own organization. So it's important that you understand what you need to do, what methodology you need to scale, so that it can help you to scale the work that you do and get the right donors to support you. So coming down to your question, what has attracted a lot of donors to us? The methodology we use to build, which is open source, because they find it interesting, they find it scalable. Government adoption also, they find it interesting, they find it scalable. So things we build from our open source technology to new product, we scale them with the government. We have one of our products now that has over 200,000, 290 something thousand users, right? Because we've been able to go from the research line to building out from it so that it can scale. So government adoption and open source is something that a lot of donors have seen that we do, and that's one of the reasons why they've been partnering and supporting the work that we do.
Yeah, I think that's incredible, and seeing the need to adapt, especially in the face of a very large funding gap that African social enterprises face. There is an approximate 330 billion funding gap annually for African social enterprises specifically. And speaking about venture capital as well, it was found that Africa only receives about 1% of this, which shows a very sobering gap that we're dealing with. And but it does highlight the need for why we need to speak about this, and the need for why social enterprises need to be able to adapt and to be able to be creative. And that's another theme that has come out of our discussion, is that we need to be a bit more creative, because unfortunately a lot of this money that is for social enterprises doesn't reach Africa, which is arguably one of the areas that needs it the most. But it also speaks to how there's still a lot of opportunity that is there that could be had, so that we could improve those statistics and we can reduce that finance gap. But it does make this conversation very important. And just on that, just to close out, is we do have a question, and you've given us a wealth of information and of inspiration. But just to close out, what would you say, what is the biggest piece of advice that you would give for upcoming social entrepreneurs? And what would you say that they need to keep at the back of their minds, addition to everything that you've shared? What is the one thing that you'd like to leave everyone with?
Say, number one, social entrepreneurship is not an occupation. So if you know you're not set out for it, don't do it. I know it is nice, people saying I'm an entrepreneur, saving, I'm doing this. If you're not set out for it, don't do it. There's nothing bad if you decide to go get a job, go get, well, I'm not trying to discourage anyone, but I'm just saying the fact. There's nothing bad for you to go try to go get a job or even go do your master's and live a very good life. It's hard. Social entrepreneurship is hard. If you know you want to do it, be very truthful with yourself. Be honest with yourself first. Also, if you know you want to do it, any sector that you have, look for a very big problem to solve. A problem you're passionate about, but look within that industry to expand it to be big enough to solve. Or else you'll be frustrated and you continue to ask questions that, oh, people are not fair to you. You start having this mentality that people don't like you, they don't want to see your face. It's not like that. You just have to ensure that you are solving something big enough that can have massive impact and be able to have a lot of impact on a lot of people's lives. That is what people are very concerned about. That's what people want to see. And like I say, when you do things like that, the universe will come around to support what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, one thing that is very important you have to understand is that if you solve a big problem and you do it so super well, the universe will also compensate you. It just works that way at the end of the day. So solve a very important problem. Make sure that it's impactful. Make sure you are doing it also in a very honest way, right? Don't use your company's money to buy a car if you get it. Don't, I tell people, and I'm not trying to be humble, Apple has raised $4 million. I don't have a personal car. It's funny to a lot of people. Yeah, funny, right? That, oh, you can get a car, why are you trying to? But I just don't have a personal car because I know what it will cost if I want to do that, right? So just be honest with yourself. Do things rightly. Do it.
I think we may have lost Dr.
Yeah, he's back.
Abiodun. Okay. Yes, you may carry on, sir. You're on mute.
Do this honestly. Be prayerful if you're a Christian. This is not a Christian gathering, but be prayerful. Let God lead you, and you'll find success on the other side. I assure you that. Yeah.
Amen. Thank you for that. I think that was a very rich and insightful conversation. I echo a lot of what everyone else is saying, and I think some of the key themes that we can take out from today is staying truthful, do not compromise, be creative, and be honest and very transparent, which Dr. Abiodun, thank you for being with us today. I will hand it over to Oduola.
Thank you very much, Naomi. Thank you very much, Abiodun. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If you have any comments, also you could put them in the chat. I want to let you know that the recording of this session will be made available. We'll have it on our YouTube page, and the link will be shared with everyone. I'm sure Pearl wants to do a tie into the conversations today to Africa Forward. So I'll just let Pearl do that tie. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much to Adola and the team for putting this together, and Dr. Abiodun and Penelope. I honestly hope that you felt, even though this is remote, you still felt the energy coming through. And that's the beautiful thing about technology, like you said, using technology for impact. Honestly, this was deeply impactful. And I'm speaking slowly because we have taken the time to try and take in the authenticity with which you basically handle this conversation. Dr. Abiodun, I really have to thank you for that. It was refreshing, it was sincere, and it certainly resonated. I mean, even the last point that you just made around thinking through what it is you're trying to solve and trying to make it a big problem that you're solving, because we live in a continent with, yes, lots of wonderful things, but at the same time, lots of big challenges as well. And so thank you for the sincerity with which you just raised that, because ultimately that is what is going to attract the funders to you. And now just bringing it back again to Africa Forward and what we seek to do. I know that we're very, very short on time, but I will share it in the link. And the way that we put this is just, if you think about it, we're building out an ecosystem that is really going to support the social innovation and social entrepreneurship space on the continent. And what does that mean for us? There are so many areas that we can play in, but we've decided that these are the 3 areas that we're going to basically focus all of our attention on. And we're calling it our strategic blueprints to action. And so I will share in the link a bit more information about what those pillars are. And we're focusing on really building out the social innovation sector, the ecosystem, and how and what are we doing about that? That is looking at data, looking at policy reform, and looking at building out a movement. That is our blueprint area number 1, the social innovation sector's development ecosystem. The next bit for us is working on job creation and skills development. Again, here we've identified areas for intervention. So we're looking at supporting leadership training, capacity building, youth training, upskilling, understanding that depending on the country that we operate in, we're going to have to employ and deploy different methodology. And the final area, which is what really concerns the conversation that we're having today, because all our conversations like this one monthly are tied to a blueprint action area. The third blueprint action area is sustainable financial empowerment. And it's absolutely relevant to the conversations that we've had today, looking at how people have done this, what are the problems, how we can scale the solutions that are coming out of our wonderful continent, how we can sustainably build out these businesses, solidify them, holistically encourage them such that they can meet with their counterparts anywhere in the world. And so I encourage you all to have a look at our websites. The links will be shared as we round up this conversation. This conversation as well will be shared, as Odola has mentioned, in the chat room. We thank you so much for your time. Time is precious today. I'll ask if there are any final questions. I believe Odola will let us know how much time we have. So I won't take up any more time today, apart from just saying a massive thank you to everybody who's made the time to be here with us, and most especially to our incredible speaker. We are super excited to see all that Help Mom is going to continue to do on the continent, and to Penelope for very wonderfully moderating that conversation and allowing us hear this speaker today. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.